Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Tina, you won't be able to. One second. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Shagun, more or less. 99.9%. No, 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 no. This weekend, nothing. We'll go till 17th as we have to. We have one doubt session on 20th, which is 20th is a Saturday. If I need, I'll add extra time there, and we can take a doubt session long one. So don't worry about that. See, I just want to reach till paintings, and thereafter paintings we have sculpture. Once we reach sculpture, the big four are done. Once the big four are done, thereafter maybe it eases off. It eases off. It becomes more and more. I forwarded your email, Aniom. I forwarded your email. I am going through the backlog because I was not well. I have a lot of emails. Tina, for example, you've emailed me multiple times. I have seen that chain. I was not in a position to reply or to actually do anything. Now I'm fine. Maybe this weekend I'll clear off everything. Wherever I have to forward, I will forward. So don't worry. I am cognizant of the emails. Some of you have asked me the link for the police article, this and that standard things, which I will again send it to you. That should be part of the dashboard, but no issues. Okay. Second mock test, the question was first mock test it would be was about stupa containing relics that include body components as well. See, there is a Mujtaba, there's if it says like that, body component would then mean hair or something. Go with it. Go with it because it is a generic word. If it says something specific, then it's a problem. It's a generic word. Do we start British model of architecture? Yes, we will. Modern, we will do obviously here. After art and culture, I'm not sure, Ashish, what is lined up for you. I know mine. We wait one more minute and then we'll start. Are the facts anything missing, Hanya, correct? Some of them incorrect, some of them correct. Incorrect ones I will tell you. One in theater, there's an incorrection. For example, for Ras Leela, there's one issue with regards to calling Kanishka Shaka ruler and 2-3, and one in painting with regards to 3Dness depth. Last set Andava not properly defined, and he's mostly messed up the chapter related to 6 schools of philosophy. No occasion. For anybody who wants this, I think Lakshya has pushed articles link, but most probably Lakshya, they're not here. Sonia, it's going to take time. It's going to take time. There's a backlog there also. Now, yesterday we reached till the Delhi Sultan's contribution. And what we had seen was that the Delhi Sultans Delhi Sultans had contributed through arch, through dome, the concept of arabesque, limestone mortar. Thereafter, we discussed and understood barter, marble dome. You have beam and lintel. Generally, arcuate structures. And if we go by this, there is a lot which has been taken. It is called Indo-Islamic architecture because it is an amalgamation, a mixture of indigenous designs and Islamic conceptions. Don't worry, Tina. Okay. Now, I hope these words now have a certain sense to you. When I say these words, for example, true arch, true dome, arabesque, limestone mortar, barter, they are not alien to you now, and you understand what we mean. Now, when we talk about the discussion today, some people consider them a part of the Delhi Sultanate, but you know that I deal Lodhis and Sayyids separately. Lodhis have an important contribution to Indo-Islamic architecture. So when we talk about Lodhis, they are known for the following. They are known for the following, wherein you have garden tomb complex, which you see in Lodhi Gardens in Delhi, further, they introduced what is called double dome. Double dome means that if you have a very high ceiling and you speak something in that room, what happens? Or what will happen? If you're in a very, very big room, it has a very high ceiling. What will happen when you speak something? It will echo. So Lodhis did not like this fact that there is echoing, or जिसको बोलते हैं गूंज. There was echoing. So what they did was that they used to actually make double domes, which is they used to add a smaller dome inside, which used to be the real height. For example, this was 10 meters, but from the outside, this was 20 meters. And the area in between was hollow. This was hollow. This is called double dome. Dome inside a dome. This is to basically negate the issues of very high ceiling, which is in itself a very interesting addition because this shows that they had become so experts in making domes that they were making a dome over a dome. And in that sense, double domes are quite interesting. This negated the issue of too high a ceiling, but Lodhis introduced multiple Rajasthani elements which were taken forward by the Mughals. And when we talk about the Lodi contribution, the Rajasthani, Gujarati elements, the Rajasthani Gujarati elements, what we see, every double dome is same. Yes, if the structure, whatever is the outside dome, the inside dome will also show the same type of structure. They will introduce four very interesting elements. First is called the Rajasthani balcony. Rajasthani balcony. You have seen it for sure in your life once or twice or multiple times. Made in a very iconic fashion. Rajasthani balconies can be open, sometimes can also be something. Okay, standard. Pritesh, not understanding, please. So here is the message, Pritesh, not understanding, and please. And the joining time of Pritesh is 5:19. Okay. So I don't know how will he understand what he's understanding. This is a standard thing which happens every day. Okay. Now, Pritesh, either come on time, or if you're coming in between a topic, obviously you will not understand. So I don't know what makes you come at 20 minutes late in that regard. We already started 6 minutes late, and I've already wasted 10 minutes. Then I started. Still you're late. Okay. Now, Rajasthani balconies, this part could be open also. This part could be jali also. Second is called and I'll show you. See, you see here. You see here. This is called a Rajasthani balcony. Is it clear? Can you make out what I am trying to show you here? You see here, something like this. It seems like a window, but it's called a balcony. You want to call it, it seems like a window, but it is actually called a balcony. So you call it a window, but it is not a window. It's basically a balcony. You could walk out into it. This area, you can actually stand here. That way. Okay. This is the first thing. Thereafter, the second thing which he introduced, or they introduced, Lodis, is called the a cave or aways. Now, I don't know if you've been to any of these monuments. On the corner of every building, you will see something like this protruding out. You'll see it in every corner. These are called a caves. See? These are actually something which the Rajasthani Gujarati design used to do, and these will later evolve into. It's an aesthetic device. Don't ask why. Why? Because देखने में अच्छा लगता है. That's it. Rather having a plain area, it isn't something which is there which looks good. But a caves or aways actually change also. I'll show you. Over a period of time, if you've been to, for example, the not the Qutub Minar, but the Taj Mahal, you would have seen something like this. Have you seen something like this? This is both same. Both are they spellings. A cave. It's a French word, so it is written as you want to write it. The simple point is this evolves later into this, and you will see it on every corner. It is something which was taken from the Rajasthani Gujarati style. So taken from the Rajasthani Gujarati style. All corners it will be there. It's a standard thing which the Lodhis introduced, but it was made better later. Thereafter, another very interesting feature which will become very common is that domes will be, what I don't want to use the word adorned. Domes will be topped by inverted lotus. It's a very standard thing which will develop, wherein the inverted lotus will be kept on the dome. So previously the domes used to not have anything above them, but inverted lotuses will become very common. With caves you can still see here in that regard. But the most interesting thing, we'll see inverted lotus on the dome. Now, see, invert lotus has a lot of significance in Hindu mythology, and generally in when you try to, what does lotus represent generally? Can anybody tell me what is the representation of lotus mean? What is lotus? Lotus is a manifestation of goddess Lakshmi. So basically, it represents prosperity. So therefore, this element was something which the Islamic rulers also understood, the sultans also understood, that good fortune, lotus, money, and that connection in that regard. And in the imagery, they always wanted to add the lotus as much as possible, and that is something which will become very common. But the most important element, which they added is called the Rajasthani Gujarati Chhatri, or which is called as domed kiosk. It's called domed kiosk. And again, this you would have seen. Why inverted? Because if it's not inverted, it's very hard to make. Inverted lotus looks good. Aesthetic choice. Domed kiosk. This again you would have seen in your life for sure. Have you seen something like this? This is called a domed kiosk or chhatri. This is called domed kiosk or chhatri. This is a very standard thing which the Lodhis added. Nowadays mandaps are made like this, but the basic point is this is called a Rajasthani Gujarati chhatri. Now these four elements came into Lodhi architecture, and Lodhi architecture in a way pioneered these ideas from balconies, kiosks to caves or ekeves, and beam lintel structures still were being used. They used double dome structures. They always also had this garden tomb complex. The whole Lodhi gardens is nothing but the tombs of all the three Lodhis, Valul, Ibrahim, and Sikandar. But the fact is, why are we talking about the Lodhis in this way? Because when it comes to the Mughals will take all of these elements to another level, wherein these are the elements. If I have to summarize in a way, Delhi Sultans had created the true arch, the true dome, limestone mortar, sloping wall, intricate design, which is called arabesque, and they had already created a certain syncretic Indo-Islamic culture. If I add to this the Lodi contribution, which is double dome, which if I ask the chhatri or domed kiosk, if I add caves, if I add the concept of Rajasthani balconies, and when I take this, it is on this base, that the Mughals took Indo-Islamic culture to another level. So before I go to Mughal, because that is a longish discussion and an interesting one, do we understand how gradationally elements are getting added, and why do I call these buildings more Indian than actually Islamic? Because if you look at the elements which are getting added, it is more and more Indian elements. It is literally Rajasthani Gujarati styles going into Indo-Islamic culture. The simple point is a cave is just a small device, which is, when I say device, means it's a small aesthetic choice. This is an a cave. Small protrusion on corners just to aesthetically make it better. The simple point, what I'm trying to argue is that the artisans are Indian, the mistris are Indians, the architects may be Islamic, the designs may be Islamic, but the implementation is properly how during the Mauryan period or previously we've seen borrowed concepts coming through. It is a borrowed design from the Islamic cultures, but is truly implemented in a truly Indian way in that regard. So it is an amalgamation, a mixture of two cultures coming together. And when you talk about Mughals, they will take it one step forward. So simple point is maybe the sultans are Muslims, but the buildings don't represent that type of architecture. Are we clear about this? 110%. If we are, then we go to the next step, which is discussing Mughals. Okay. 110%? Okay, perfect. Now, when we talk about Mughals, basically the corporate indigenous element, yes. You see, basically they Femina, the problem in writing what you've written is you're saying basically they incorporated indigenous elements into their architectural design. That word there is the problem, because then what you're doing is then you're actually arguing that there is a there in which Indian is getting added. Rather, I am arguing it is their design which is Indian in that regard. There's a difference. You are saying that A was added to B or B was added to A. I am saying AB exists together. Get my point? Okay. Now, Turkish, everywhere, Vikram, it will be Turkish, which will start to represent, which will start to spread across. Okay. Now, when we talk about Mughals, first comes Babar. Now, Babar does not have the political stability of the Indian subcontinent to monumentally express himself. So he has no real addition to the Indian architectural landscape, he made two mosques, one at Panipat and the other one, I'll show it to you. One at Panipat and the other one at Sambhal. This is the Panipat one. Panipat Mosque, nothing really actually out of the box, ugly building that is. So Panipat and Sambhal, no architectural merit. But one thing he does, he in Afghanistan, while sitting in Kabul as a ruler who had nothing really to do, he introduced a concept which is called Char Bagh concept. It's called Char Bagh concept. Wherein Char Bagh means that Babur is coming from a very arid terrain. He's coming from a very arid terrain. Samarkand, Fargana, they are very arid terrains. So he loved gardens. He loved gardens, and basically the concept of garden complex is something which Babur loved because he wanted to see greenery. And therefore, what he did was he developed the four quadrant Bagh, which is called Char Bagh. Char Bagh. Now, Char Bagh has multiple, in a way, interesting elements because at one level you have this four quadrant structure. There is also water works, and the flow of water is something which again he likes to represent, he wants to represent, and therefore it is something where Babur was the one who conceptualized this idea of Char Bagh. So if you talk about Char Baghs in India, for example, we have one in Lucknow, then one in Kashmir. The concept of Ram Bagh, Char Bagh, the Bagh concept of dividing into four quadrants is something which is quite Mughalish, and they will take it one step forward. They will take it one step forward by placing buildings into this complex. But if I have to ask or talk about Babur's only Shalimar Bagh in Kashmir, in Jammu and Kashmir, there are multiple bags, but Shalimar, which is made by Shah Jahan, but is actually a conceptualized idea of Babur. The simple is that Char Bagh concept, whoever made later, is based on Babur's basic conceptualization in Kabul. Are we clear about it? Which is what is Babur's contribution? If somebody asks you, what did Babur contribute to the conception? And you will see in the Taj Mahal, all of these elements will culminate. Yes, sir. Okay. Thereafter, you have Humayun. Thereafter, you have Humayun. And when we talk about Humayun, Humayun again has no real contribution. He was too drunk to do anything as it is. Contribution. And what he even started was not completed by him, which is the Purana Killa, which made later Shesha Suri will actually uh, in a way complete. And he had no political stability or the time to construct the main buildings or any monuments. And though we have a monument named after him, it was not him who made it, but his widow. So the Humayun's tomb, which is seen as a step forward to what Babur did, was made or was commissioned Hamida Bano Begum, which is the wife or the widow of Humayun, and Akbar basically was the one who paid for it in a way. Now, why Humayun's tomb? Just to ask you this question, I'm giving you two options. A is that you've seen it. B, you have not seen. How many of you have seen Humayun's tomb if you have in your life ever? Seen means when you are there. 74% haven't seen it. So, see, if you have not seen Humayun's tomb, 1 second, tell me one thing. A, B, same, which is seen, not seen. Tell me, have you seen Taj Mahal? How many have seen Taj Mahal? Not in picture. देखा तो मैंने भी अमेरिका है pictures में. In your physically, 53%. More people have seen Taj Mahal, and I hope you've answered it in the sense of being there, not in pictures. Seen, we have seen a lot of things. I've seen, for example, Shah Rukh Khan also. So now, why am I asking you this? Because if you haven't seen Taj Mahal, and if you've only seen Humayun tomb, and if you've seen Humayun's tomb and you've seen Taj Mahal both, Humayun's tomb's implementation is much, much more interesting. And if Taj Mahal wasn't there, Humayun's tomb is actually a very interesting and very imperious building. Very imperious buildings. And when we talk about Humayun's tomb, it is considered very important for 2 to 3 very important reasons. The architect, I'll show you his name so that there's no issue. Mirak Mirza Giyas. Mirak Mirza Giyas actually was brought by Hamida Bano Begum from the Safavid Empire. So basically, he has a very strong Persian Iranian influence. And for the same reason, Humayun's tomb represents Indian plus Persian plus Islamic conceptions of architecture. Now, if you look at, just to bring you to that basic point, Humayun did not have time. He made two mosques, one at Agra, the other one at Fatehpur or Fatehabad, which is Hisar. Nothing really. And in 1555, the building called Humayun's tomb will be commissioned, and in 1564 it will be completed, and it was commissioned by Hamida Bano Begum, and the building was made by a architect coming from Persia, therefore that Persian influence in that regard. So if you look at the Humayun's tomb, you will actually understand why do I say that it is a very interesting building. First thing which you distinctly see by looking at the Humayun's tomb itself is it is based on the Charbagh concept. If you look at it, it is surrounded by Charbaghs, four quadrant baghs. Thereafter, Humayun's tomb is made on a very high platform, which is something which actually is there in temple architecture, which we see, Pitha. And somewhere down the line, the Islamic architecture picks up on this idea that making buildings on a high platform makes sense. And therefore, the high platform concept comes through. But now comes in the basic elements which I'm talking about. See, you will see a very beautiful blend of two to three things. Red sandstone is used very beautifully with yellow and white sandstone, together making a very interesting combination. But now come the Rajasthani Gujarati elements which I was talking about. You see here, you have the caves, you have the chhatri, which have been picked up directly from, the chhatri, a cave, and a cave, which is domed kiosk. Now, along with that, the dome which you see on this building is a double dome, which basically is a Lodi element which they've taken forward. It's a double dome, but it is very sharp in its representation. This curvy linearity, where have we seen previously? This curvy linearity, where have we seen this previously? Very good. Nagara style Latina has this strong curvy linearity. And in that sense, that element comes through because they used to make flatter domes. They made it very pointy, wherein again that idea of temple architecture comes through. But the most interesting thing is this. What is this? Can anybody tell me? This is a star. What is the star represent? What does the star represent? Yes. This is called the Star of David. This is a Jewish symbol. And this is where the Persian influence is coming through. Persian influence is coming through. And what we see is a very interesting implementation wherein you have a dual. This is called Star of David plus inverted lotus. See, you don't need to learn everything I'm saying. What I'm trying to show you is something different. I'm trying to show you what Indian architecture really is. Everything which you need to write in the examination is given in the PPT. The images which I've brought to you is to specifically show you something, which is that our architecture is more nuanced than what you actually think. Star of David plus inverted lotus is something which you would never think about for Indian architecture. So when somebody says to you that this is this architecture, it is all Indian architecture. because there is no equivalent to the Humayun's tomb across the world, because nobody made buildings like this. And therefore, Indo-Islamic architecture is one step gradation adding of elements as we go forward. So what we've understood is that the Humayun's tomb has multiple things which are bringing the old elements, which is the concept of true arch, true dome, double dome, chhatri, kiosk, and adding something to it. So every Mughal building actually added something to the larger assemblage, from just starting from a arch to a dome, now creating these magnificent buildings which are also bringing Char Bagh plus all what we know as Lodi plus what we call as Delhi Sultanate architecture. So I hope that you are understanding what is the purpose of this discussion. Here you need to understand that every building is a further addition to the larger concept. Are we clear about this? Are we clear about this? Yes? Okay. Now comes Akbar. Now, when we talk about Akbar, Akbar, and in the end, I'll give you a table, don't worry. Distracting from, I have doubts. You don't need to learn the years. If you know Humayun is Humayun and Akbar is Akbar, so Humayun's tomb will be before Akbar's buildings. So don't have to learn the years. Now, Akbar, Sher Shah separately breaks the basic tone separately. Akbar, he has a very interesting, very interesting set of things which he introduced. Akbar is a red sandstone person. He uses, this is extensive use. Second is that Akbar buildings represent power. It's about power. The third is Akbar loved the Rajasthani elements, Rajasthani Gujarati elements, and he was obsessed by the Chhatri. He loved Chhatris. Literally was obsessed by Chhatris. And thereafter, Babar made the Mughal garden. No, British made Mughal gardens. Which you are talking about the Amrit Kalash gardens, whatever. Now, Akbar, whilst being obsessed with Chhatris, also changed designs of the basic Islamic building such as mosques. And he is known to have done one more thing. He brought back tributed structures. Where were the tributed structures most common? Where were the tributed structures most common? Very good. Temple architecture tributed structures, he picked up a liking for it. And I will show you, you will see that same type of tributed structures again. Akbar is also the one who introduced the four-centered arch, basically arches should not have depth. When you're able to make an arch which basically has depth, it's called a four-center arch. You don't have to become a scientist here. It is called four-centered because you can see this arch has depth. If I'm standing in the front, this arch has depth. You can see it has depth. This depth is called four-centered. That's four centers, the weight is divided. So again, if you take a tangent and do it, I don't care about that. If it says four-centered arch, it has to be Akbar. Now, from sandstone buildings to trapezoid structures to decorative forms, arches being used for decorative forms, to four-centered arch, Akbar's basic contribution is to revive a lot of interesting things. We will also say that arches were used for decoration, and very simply, trapezoid decorative four-centered arch, be it chhatri, be it red sandstone, building representing power. Akbar changed the tone, but also added a lot of interesting things. And his two major contributions in that regard are, one is called Agra Fort. I hope you've seen that. If not, we will have a tour here. But second is the Fatehpur Sikri. Fatehpur Sikri. Fatehpur Sikri is important because that is the building, that is the city which he created. Never used it properly because it was too far away from the Yamuna. Fatehpur Sikri is the Fatehpur, means when he conquered Gujarat, he celebrated that by having a new building itself called Fatehpur Sikri, a new city itself called Fatehpur Sikri. Never really populated it properly. It was just for show. Now, if you understand what I've written here, I want to demonstrate it to you. But in the examination, you have to write the following points I've written. If you understand the purpose of or the structure of this discussion, how I'm having it, which is I'm discussing the points with you and then I'm showing it to you, then I will want to move to showing these points to you rather than just telling them. That is the problem with Nitin Singhania. He talks about a lot of things, but there are no images to support it. So I've discussed a lot of points here. I want to show it to you also. Can we do that? Okay. Now the first phase is Gujarat, is the Agra Fort, and unfortunately, this is the Agra Fort. Unfortunately, not a lot of buildings within the Agra Fort are actually Akbar's now. Now you can see the sense which comes out of the Agra Fort. It represents power, but again, inverted lotus does not go amiss with regards to always being at the entrance. But if you look at this gate, this is the real gate. This is the gate which is made in front of it. But when you really have to enter, you have to go through this gate. This is called the Agra Fort Delhi Gate. The gate which every gate is named after the direction it actually represents. So if you exit from this gate and walk straight, you will go to Agra, to Delhi. That's why it's called Delhi Gate. Now, Delhi Gate has all the elements which we see and call as the concept of of what we see previously. You can see here. Here, what is this? What are these? This is the Rajasthani balcony. Thereafter, chhatri, inverted lotus on dome, and this is an octagonal structure with again balconies representing the Rajasthani style. But you can see he's made arches here. But these arches have no purpose other than just being a standard decorative device. But what is more interesting is, see, within the Agra Fort, there's only one structure which actually represents Akbar. Because if you enter from the Agra Fort, on the right hand side you have Jahangiri Mahal. This is called Jahangiri Mahal. Every other building was remodeled by Shah Jahan into marble. And that is why, except for that, this is the second building which actually represents Akbar within Agra fort itself. And here you can again see how Akbar was getting more and more influenced by Rajasthani Gujarati styles, and he was changing the way buildings were being made. So from the big chhatris which you see here, from the Rajasthani balconies which you see here, to the inverted lotus which you see here, from arches being made to just decorate the whole structure. It's a two-story building. If I don't tell you that it is Akbar, and it is Akbar, or it is made within the Agra fort, would you actually believe that it is an Islamic building? Would you actually believe it is an Islamic building? And the idea is no, because it is missing a very important element. Islamic buildings and mosques mostly have minars, but they don't have minars. They don't have minars, they don't have domes. It is a proper structure made in a way so as to represent a amalgamation of the Indo-Islamic culture with more Rajasthani and Gujarati elements. But if you look from the inside, then the real resemblance comes out. If you look at the inside, where have we seen pillars like this? This is called a trabeted structure. It's a double-story building. These type of decorated pillars are temple inspired. So when you look at the Jahangiri Mahal from the inside, it seems more like a temple than actually like a basic residential complex. But this resemblance or this idea goes one step forward when we reach the second phase, which is Fatehpur Sikri. And in Fatehpur Sikri, we have both types of buildings, religious and non-religious. And we'll discuss, for example, the what we call as Jodha Bai's palace. We'll discuss the Panch Mahal. The point is, if I show you this, if I show you this courtyard is actually the courtyard of a mosque. And if you look inside the Jami mosque itself, or the Jami Masjid itself, you see here arabesque and the lotus. Now, mosques are not made like this. Further, the original design of mosques have also been changed. A mosque, a masjid will always have a minar. Akbar said to the architect, मीनार नहीं, लाइन से छतरी लगा दो. You see, छतरी 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 छतरी, बोला जिधर देखो उधर छतरी दिखना चाहिए. So if you look at it, the Jami mosque doesn't even look like a mosque. Doesn't even look like a mosque. And I hope now you realize why the ulemas would hate Akbar quite a lot. And why they would call Akbar more Hindu than actually Islamic. Because if you look at his buildings, he literally said, I don't care if the mosque should look like this. I want this mosque. He is putting Hinduistic elements inside a mosque. And nobody can challenge him because he's Akbar. You say something, you'll be most probably buried alive in one of these panels somewhere. The simple point is that Akbar had the guts and the vision to create his own designs. That is why if you go to the Buland Darwaza, again, overload, छतरी 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 छतरी, छोटा छतरी भी लगा दो, छतरी 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 छतरी, again छतरी छतरी. He said big छतरी, small छतरी does not matter. I only want छतरी. The difference between mosque design, Jahangiri Mahal mosque is only chhatri. No, it's just the implementation. Mosque, are not made by open courtyards like this. If they are made like this, it's a very Mughalish thing to have very big open courtyards with chhatri design. See, understand this point. It does not sit well with a lot of people today that Islamic building cannot look like an Islamic building. These buildings are not Islamic. These buildings are Indian. They represent India, which is unity in diversity. They represent that amalgamation. The fact is, from using the inverted lotus to Buland Darwaza having a certain idea. This is a cave. A cave. And if you look the inside, the chhatri overloading again goes forward. Again chhatri, 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 chhatri. Everywhere you see is chhatri. This is the beauty of. But why? Because he liked it. He liked it. He said, it looked good. It looked good. What I'm trying to argue to you is a very simple, straightforward point. Akbar was the one who made the Rajasthani Gujarati elements more pronounced. And even when you look at Salim Chisti's tomb, which basically initially was made by Akbar in a red sandstone, then Shah Jahan came and said, "Aankhon mein lag nahi raha hai, marble laga do." Then basically he put in marble on this whole panel. He said, "My eyes should dazzle. Chondi aa jani chahiye." So they actually put in the marble panels, initially made actually by what we call as basic red sandstone. But when he made it with marble, again this type of designing, and if you go a little bit further closer, this is called a jali, and this is actually a Rajasthani jali. Actually, a Rajasthani jali. So very simply, when they made even Islamic buildings, Salim Chisti's tomb, it now looks more like a temple. It actually looks more like a temple than actually a tomb, with the basic domed thing with the inverted lotus on the top. If you look at the basic design of Salim Chisti's tomb, there is actually a place in which you can go around the tomb. Again, something which is not used in tombs itself. Where is Salim Chisti's tomb? This is again all Fatehpur Sikri. All Fatehpur Sikri. And if I move a step further, we get two buildings, which is one is called Panch Mahal and the other one is called Jodhabai's Palace. Now, if you look at Jodhabai's Palace, ignore the guide making a fool out of these foreigners. If you look at this building, it again turns out to be properly Rajasthani Gujarati balcony, chhatari, and what is this? Can you see this? What is this? This is Star of David plus inverted lotus. Something which they picked up from Humayun's tomb. And again, if you look at this arc is not needed. It is just for aesthetical purposes. It is just for aesthetical purposes. But the real flex or the real show off which Akbar actually did was in the Panch Mahal. In the Panch Mahal, it's a 5-story building. And very simply, he said, I want to know which story I am by just looking at the pillar. This is again a tripartite structure. Each pillar is dissimilar to each other. Obviously, the chhatri will come in the top. Every pillar is dissimilar, meaning he will have a different design here, different design here, different design here, different design here. And Panch Mahal is basically a useless building, but a flex. Flex means it is trying to show that if it comes to me being bored, I can even make 5-story buildings. So very simply, I have shown you a whole set of buildings which basically which represent Akbar. Now, if you look at Akbar, you will realize he's showing power, he's showing finesse, he's also showing a certain sense of aesthetic, what we call as expression. But the most interesting thing which is there, is that he took every element which was there and he pronounced it more and made it bigger and bigger and bigger. So be it Humayun's tomb or be it Akbar's contribution, he has added more interesting things here. Are we clear? Are we clear? I'll give you a table in the end of the discussion that will be enough to suffice to write any answer in the mains level examination or any what we call as basic question with regards to that. Sure, Aditya, that could also be the case. Now, now the second, or rather the next person is Jahangir. Now, Jahangir is not known for architecture. He's rather known for paintings. And Jahangir's paintings are the highest point in Mughal painting tradition. Now, which Akbar building have situated where? Agra Fort, fortunately, unfortunately, still in Agra. And Fatehpur Sikri उठाने की कोशिश की थी. They tried to pick it up, were not able to. Still near Agra. And where they were, they are still there. What I'm trying to argue. Agra Fort is still in Agra. There's Allahabad Fort also made by him. Lahore Fort also made by him. And you have the Fatehpur Sikri city and other smaller buildings here and there. Now, Sir Salim Chishti, where it is? Inside Fatehpur Sikri. Okay. So Jahangir is the highest point, but Jahangir's period is a very interesting period because it is a transitionary phase from red sandstone. I'm coming to that. Akbar's tomb is in Sikandra, which we're coming to. Again, near Agra. Red sandstone and marble. Now, before Akbar died, he actually had already designed his tomb. Now, Jahangir period has two major contributions. One is Akbar's tomb at Sikandra, and the second one is Noor Jahan, who wasted a lot of money on her father's tomb, is called Itmatu Dola. Itmatu Dola tomb. And Noor Jahan's contribution or Jahangir's contribution in Itmatu Dola's tomb is very important because here for the first time we see a new decorative technique which is called Pitidura or Pitiduri. Now, if you look at Akbar's tomb, Akbar's tomb itself shows a transitionary thing, wherein half of it is made out of red sandstone and half of it is made out of marble. And over and above that, obviously Chhatri had to be there, a man who swore by his Chhatris. But what we see is that arabesque has come back in a new element, but minars have now started to, in a way, take the position where the caves used to be. So basically, minars, in a way, are representing like oversized caves. Now, the most interesting building of this set is this one. Jarokha Darshan is not a building, it's a practice. Now, this is called the Itmatu Dola tomb. which is in Agra before you, if you're coming from Delhi, cross over the Yamuna on the right hand side of the, just before you cross the Yamuna on the right hand side, there's a tomb, which is called the Itmaduddaulah tomb. That is Noor Jahan's father. And this tomb is actually full marble tomb, but it has a very interesting decorative technique which is called piteduri. Now, pitedura is basically an inlaying technique. Is an inlaying technique. What do you mean by inlaying technique? Basically, now you see, if this was this is marble comes in slabs. I hope you understand that. Do you understand that marble comes in slabs? This is one slab of marble, right? The marble is very flat, plain, very beautiful. Now, over this flat, plain body, what our karigars were able to do, see, if I start to chisel on it, chisel means that I start to push pressure on it. And if I make perforations, perforations mean holes into it, what would it look like? If I made holes in a whole marble panel, what would it be basically called? It would be called a jali. Now, jali basically is net. Net jali is when you go through the marble. You can see through the marble. But what they were able to do was able to make patterns in them. They had made it in such a way that it did not become translucent or transparent, but in each of these panels you could put stones to make patterns. This is called piteduri. They make a mold, or they make a pattern in which you can then place these stones so as to make patterns in a very beautiful way altogether. Jali would be that you have gone through it, but the whole Itmaduddaulah tomb is basically made out of piteduri. Piteduri is very, very hard to do, and I'll give you a very simple example of it. If you have a piece of paper, do you have a piece of paper in front of you? Do you have a piece of paper? Yes. Now take a pen, and poke a hole into it. Hold it like this, hold it in a way that the pen goes through it. Can you make the pen go through it? Yes. That is how a jali is made. That you took a marble piece and poked a hole through it without destroying the marble. Now imagine, now you broke paper. You tore the paper. Most of you would have tore the paper because you would not have created the enough pressure. Now imagine that they were able to make grooves in that paper so that you could put small pieces of stones inside it. Grooves. If you take that paper and start to make a groove means indentation, in which you can put one small stone, that is basically piteduri. What I'm trying to prove to you is the difficultness of something like this. It's very, very difficult to do. And this is the level of architecture which we had reached. We had reached. We understand this? Piteduri, Noor Jahan and Jahangir's contribution, transitionary phase, and it is very time consuming. Transitionary phase and a new type of piteduri, a new type of decorative technique called piteduri. Now comes our overspender, our bank corrupter. The reason why the British were able to do what they were able to do, why Aurangzeb hated him generally. Dwepayan, you're not understanding the difference between a mosque and Taj Mahal, and a tomb is not a place of worship. A temple and a mosque is a place of worship, and there's a difference between these two. So if you understand what I said, you will understand what your question is. Now, very good, Ravi. Now, Shahjahan, if you have a lot of money and you want to waste money, give it to Shahjahan. He will waste money very efficiently. Now, very simply, Shah Jahan did two things. He hated Agra, but he also loved Agra because he made the memorial of his wife in Agra, which is the Taj Mahal. But at the same point of time, he did not like Agra's temperature and basic demeanor. So he brought back. He's the one who brought back the what we call as capital from Agra to Delhi. And when he came back to Delhi, he did two things. He made the Jama Masjid and the Red Fort, which is Shahjahanabad, which is called Red Fort today, Lal Killa. And Lal Killa and the Taj Mahal both represent, in that regard, two high points of the Mughal architecture. Now, when we look at the Red Fort itself, today the Red Fort is quite different because after 1857, once the British entered the Red Fort, they destroyed everything in this section, everything in this section, and only what today exists is this part, which is Meena Bazar, and you have Diwane Am, Diwane Khas, Rang Mahal, and Moti Masjid, which is left. Other than that, nothing is left in this whole sector. British created these ugly barracks in that regard. The simple point is, Red Fort, you had close to 53 different buildings, but only 4 survive. Jami and Jama are different. Jami Masjid is in Agra, Jama Masjid is in Delhi. Now, when you look at the Red Fort, what you actually see today is not the real gate of Red Fort. This part, which you see here, from where the Prime Minister actually speaks, was not made by Shah Jahan. This is a later addition. This whole section. This is a later addition. The real gate is actually here. This one. This is called the Lahori Gate. This is called the Lahori Gate. This is the Meena Bazar. Meena Bazar is known to have a roof which is actually made out of arches, 4 centered arches. But if you look at the Red Fort's main gate, you will automatically realize a cave's looking more or less like a minar. Red sandstone plus marble inverted dome. Then you have the kiosk itself, octagonal structures, which is quite common. This has now been closed, but this was actually a balcony here, which was a what was called Rajasthani Gujarati balcony. And the most important aspect which you need to again realize is that if you go inside, we see these 4 buildings. This is the Diwane. This is not Diwane Am. This is Diwane Khas, Rang Mahal, Jami Masjid, and you have one more building which is called the Diwane Am, which is in front of it. Now, within the Agra fort, Shah Jahan, I told you, did not leave anything left. But what he did was he remodeled the Jami Masjid of Agra, which is inside the Agra fort. And what he did was that he again challenged the notions of how a mosque is made by adding full marble chhatris and what we call as an arcaded, trabeted, what we call as congregation hall, which you see here. It's a whole tribeted, what we call as arcaded, which is multiple pillars are there. What we see in temples, But what is the most iconic element which can tell you a building has been made by Shah Jahan is called the 9 cusped arch with the lotus. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Cusp means foliations. You take an arch, and then take out 9 cusps from it, and you get a Shah Jahan arch. This is called the Shah Jahan arch. You will see it everywhere. You will see the standard chhatri itself. You can see it in the Red Fort also. The Shah Jahan arches are there. So if you ever go to a building and you see these 9 cusped arches, it is the Shah Jahan arch which has been used, Now, the Diwan-e-Am, this is the one, is an again arcaded congregation hall where the people used to meet. Again, the standard 9 cusped arch is there. But this is where the Jarokha Darshan used to happen. This is called the Peacock Throne. Now, if you look at the roof of the Peacock Throne, where have we seen this type of a throne? Peacock Throne? We've seen this type of a roof previously. Very good. This is called the Palasena Dome. The sloping roof of Bengal. Palasena Dome, Palasena roof. Now, do you understand why I say that it is an amalgamation? It is an amalgamation because when Shah Jahan went to the Bengal sector, he loved this roof and he said that I want it in my main throne in that regard. In my main throne in that regard. The whole concept of Jarokha Darshan, the way it happens is also quite Rajasthani in that sense that he's sitting here, he used to sit here, he used to listen to everybody who is in front of him. But the fact is, Shah Jahan in a way was moving one step closer to creating his masterpiece, which is called the Taj Mahal. Now, why do I say that the Taj Mahal is the Taj Mahal? Why is it called a wonder of the world? Why is it called the culmination point of everything which is Mughal? And the reason for that is, it has all the elements we've seen till this point. Can I show it to you how there are all elements which we've seen till this point in one? It is the culmination of Indo-Islamic architecture. First, it is based on a charbagh, then waterworks. Thereafter, if you go a little bit closer or further away, you have Chhatri. This is a double dome. This is called the bulbous dome. Bulbous dome. Bulbous dome, basically the neck is shorter, and you would have seen this in Aladdin cartoon. This is called a bulbous dome with the inverted lotus. Then you have the caves. You can see here caves. You have arabesque. And if I go a little bit more closer, I have arabesque plus Peter Dury plus a cave. It is on a platform. It is based on an octagonal design. And in that regard, very similar to the what we call as the Humayun's tomb. And the minars are back. But these minars are actually in themselves an architectural marvel in that regard. Can I tell you why is it that we believe that it is very, very hard to do what they did in this? See, that is not the Urdu script, that is the Arabic script. Now, the the Taj Mahal is made in such a way, and four-centered arch is also there. Yes, this is the four-centered arch. Now, why am I saying that it is an architectural marvel? Because if you have ever been to Taj Mahal, when you enter the entry gate, the minars of the Taj Mahal are made in such a way that if you look it from the entry gate itself, you will only see two minars. Basically, if you look at this building from any side, this side, this side, this side, or this side, You'll only see two minars if you are at a very standard distance. And the reason is because it is an optical illusion. The minars have been made so centimeter to centimeter accurate that they superimpose each other. Though there are two minars, they are exactly aligned to each other. That is why it is believed that the geometry of Taj Mahal in itself was already a architectural marvel. So when we talk about Shah Jahan and Jahangir, there are certain elements we talk about in that regard about both of them. You have foliated curves, you have a very standard marble arcaded panels itself, bulbous dome, inlaying pattern, Peter Dury. But Shah Jahan took it to a point which was never known previously, and the Taj Mahal, in a way, culminates all the standard things which are there, from octagonal pavilion to high marble platform to west structure having a mosque to being a square building but with 8 different sides itself, beautiful bulbous dome, to the ideas of the minars, to calligraphy, to the makaran, the very Jodhpuri makaran marble panels which came, which are the most lustrous in that regard. The fact is, Taj Mahal brings everything together. I hope now you understand why Taj Mahal is considered Taj Mahal. Do you understand this? It has Rajasthani balcony also inwards, not outwards, but inwards. Inside it, you will see it. Now, last thing we will discuss is Aurangzeb. Now, Aurangzeb, क्या ही बोल सकते हैं? He basically, can we go inside Taj Mahal? Yes. He basically decommissioned all the architects who went to the Rajputs. But he did two things for sure. He really wanted to copy his father. One is the Badshahi Mosque, which is the copy of the uh, Jama Masjid, which he was still able to make. But the last major building made by Aurangzeb was again for his wife in Aurangabad. If a wife says something, you have to do it. And this is called the Bibi Ka Makabra. Bibi Ka Makabra. उसको ताज बोला, इसको मकबरा बोल दिया, but बीबी का मकबरा. And this is a copy of the Taj Mahal. But the problem was, neither did Aurangzeb have the money, nor the expertise, nor the people to make it. So the first problem with Bibi Ka Makbara is it looks not like in marble, because the marble from Makaran has already gone through. He used the cheap marble which was available in this area. So it basically looks like a chuna building. Chuna maar diya, limestone building. First. Second, this whole building is actually a little bit crooked. Teda hai. That it is not like this, it is like this. This is forward, this is backward. So this whole building is actually based on cost cutting. So the geometry is wrong, the implementation is wrong, and simply the money was not there. So the way it was made is also quite wrong. The last copy of Taj Mahal was the Safdarjung tomb, made by Safdarjung, the ruler of Awadh, but he again was not able to copy. In that regard, people have tried to copy the Taj Mahal, never really succeeded. And with this, we finish medieval architecture. And these are, for your reference, I've given you these two basic slides in which all the arches and all the domes which were used in India are actually shown to you. And therefore, we will now come back. I'll give you a summary, and thereafter the summary table, I will then talk about modern architecture, finish architecture, and start painting. Acceptable? Okay, great. So I'll give, because I didn't give you the breather in between, we can come back by 6:55, 7. If we can take a 20-25 minutes break, not an issue. So I'll see you at close to 7. Before 7, don't start to panic. The world is over, the world is ended, where has sir gone? Don't do that. Right? See, Welcome back. Ritika, where are you? Okay. Okay. Meena Bazaar is a bazaar, yes. Okay. Now, before we discuss modern, tell me it would be true, it may not be true, it would be true. So it is because he did not want the knowledge to be transferred. 10 minutes writing two answers, taking 10 minutes in writing two answers is good enough, is actually good enough. It's better. 5 minutes for one answer is good. But that I hope that you're writing the right answer. 5 minutes is too less. 7 minutes is okay. 152, 5 minutes is okay. 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 Orange. That is also good. XY good enough. Okay. Akbar. Akbar. Jahangir. I am not saying anything. Extra noise is coming. I don't know what noise. It's pin drops silence in this studio. Okay, Jahangir. Shah Jahan. Karthik, you can watch it again, no issues. New city, Red Fort, Shahjahanabad. Done. Later Mughals are not stable enough to do anything. Done. Humayun's tomb, made by Hamidabana Begum under Akbar's reign. Under Akbar's reign. Can we transition to modern? Okay. Now, when we talk about modern architecture, there are three things which we have to discuss. Two very small. One is Portuguese and French. And thereafter, British. In British, we have two types. One is called Indo-Gothic, then it's called Indo-Saracenic. Nina Bazaar still stands as of today. It's a bazaar till today. Now, first, let's discuss Portuguese. Now, when we talk about Portuguese influence, which is there in the Casta de Aguada in Mumbai and most of the buildings which we see in Goa, there are two general contributions to Indian architecture. Are two things. One, the term is called patio houses, and the second one is called Baroque style. This is a basic patio house. And second is called Baroque style. Now, patio houses are when there is open space in the front. For example, you would have seen that previously houses were made with space in the middle, but now you would have seen that houses have a very big porch, front area and back area. Previously, all spaces used to be within the house. Patio means open space in front and back. Now very common that ways. And Baroque style is what you see here. This golden decorative technique on walls. This is very common in Victorian in England, for example, in uh, France, you'll find it quite a lot. For Portugal itself, very common in European designs, which is this type of what we call as golden embroidery, golden work which happens on walls itself. So patio houses, which is open space in the front and The second, which is this type of decorative wall art, are two things which are related to the Portuguese. Now, in the examination, obviously, you're not getting a whole thesis on the Portuguese itself, but the Iberian style of architecture, two concepts were introduced and added into the Indian subcontinent. So there are two things which you have to associate with the Portuguese, not very big, not very small. Prelims type question will come from this area. Thereafter, we have the second, which is the French. And when we talk about the French, the not really contributed too much except for the architecture of Mahe, Karikal, Yanam, and Chandranagar and Pondicherry. But they were the first to develop the proper planned city before Chandigarh, and that is Pondicherry or Puducherry. Now, Pondicherry has a very interesting concept, which is basically called the radial plan, or what they call as Cartesian grid pattern, meaning that the whole city is based on concentric circles. The concept of having a city center is something which is talked about, which is talked about, wherein the city center is how the whole city is surrounded by or is planned around it. This is called, in French design, Cartesian grid plan. So again, not specific, but just for match the following. If the examination asks you, for example, French Cartesian grid plan, Baroque style, or patio houses, just associate two words, Baroque and Cartesian grid plan, Baroque and patio houses with the Portuguese, Cartesian grid plan with the French. Thereafter, the next is the British. Now, in British, the first what they followed between 1757 to 18, not even 18, till 1911, till the shift of capital to Delhi, they followed what is called the Indo-Gothic plan. Now, the word Gothic basically means Christian architecture, which was quite common in the church architecture and in what we call as the English sector or throughout Europe itself, Gothic designs. And the Gothic buildings are mostly what we call as inspired by the concept of Christianity. So you will see a cross everywhere. You can see a cross everywhere. This is the cross, the Christian cross. Further, the dark buildings. Then you have the iconic Gothic arches, which you would have again seen somewhere or the other in your life for sure. In old libraries, you would have seen something like this. This is called the Gothic arches. You can see here, arch has three basic openings. This is called the Gothic arches. And if you go closer and look at the imagery, if you go closer and look at the imagery of these buildings, they are generally linked to the concept of trying to possess or represent power. It is representation of power, and in a way, during this period, the Indo-Gothic style, the British were trying to be distinct. So Colaba region, the regions, for example, in Calcutta, old Calcutta sector, and Madras, old Madras, you will see these. Now, after 1911, when they shifted the capital to Delhi, they changed their pattern. And the pattern now became called Indo-Saracenic, which was represented by two very important personalities. Lutens, these are the two, Herbert Baker and Lutens are the two architects of the New Delhi sector. And these architects that ways are now going to change the tone. By looking at the North Block, South Block, this is North Block. Does this remind you of something? Does this patterning remind you of something? This is their attempt to argue that they were nothing but the Mughals. And you can see with red sandstone back, yellow sandstone, lotus, chhatari, chhajja, chhajja, and the basic point is they will use charbags, they will use domes as much as possible. And here, during the era of nationalism, they will start to change their basic outward projection. This you will see in the Red Fort. This you will see in the not in the Red Fort, the North Block, the South Block. This you will see in the old Parliament building, and in the Supreme Court. All of these buildings. This is a tribated circular structure based on Chaucer Yogini temple cult itself. This is a structure again. You have Chhatari, you have the dome, you have the standard tribated structures in that regard. It is very common. When we'll discuss current affairs, I'll talk about the new parliament building when we'll reach there. This is the only thing which you need to know, which is the Indo-Islamic architecture was topped by Indo-Gothic, which is more steel and concrete buildings, very large windows, crucified plan. Meaning, if you look at the building from the top, it will seem like it is a cross. On thereafter, Indo-Saracenic will be used, wherein they will start to bring in a lot of different elements of Indian architecture and try to make more hybrid buildings in that regard. Other than that, who made who make the old parliament? British, Herbert Baker Lutens. And with this, we finish this module. Done. We have finished first two modules, architecture. Close to we've covered 60 pages of that first chapter of Nitin Singhania. If you have the newer edition 60, older edition 40, 45. Now I want to pivot to modern is over. Don't have to get caught up in modern. Modern, they've never asked a question. And whatever they're asking is current affairs. So we'll discuss it in current affairs. British Khatam, Gothic and Indo-Saracenic. These words are what you need to know. Now, we have finished module number 1 and module number 2. Both are architecture. I hope architecture is clear in your mind. Temple, what we call as medieval, and the elements which are left, which is regional, Suri and all, we'll discuss in miscellaneous. I have tried to create a certain image in your mind, and through images I've tried to show you a lot of things, which is from the point of starting with IVC till modern India, we have seen a different side to India, and I hope that you are now able to link that properly. So I hope architecture, now you are capable of answering any prelims or mains questions. Because then we go to paintings, which is equally interesting section, where you will go through a new type of experience with me, wherein we'll discuss paintings. Here we'll start at the prehistoric period. From prehistoric, we will go to cave murals. From cave murals, we'll go to Islamic, not even Islamic, it can't be called Islamic. It will be cave to Pothi art to then Mughal paintings. This is the basic sequence. I'll give you a breather here so that you can clear your mind. But I hope architecture, you are more capable, and I hope this made more sense to you than what you have done previously through Nitin Singhania. If I get a yes from everybody, we will start the painting module after we take a breather. Yes? Architecture clear, sir? Beautiful. So now we start. Our new journey with regards to prehistoric art and thereafter cave murals and Pothi art and reach till Mughal paintings. I'll discuss certain concepts with you and then we can start. We'll start exactly at 7:30 and then we'll go exact 1 hour. I think you have a webinar, so I'll leave you 5-10 minutes early as you need to. So I'll see you exactly at 7:30. Prashant, you don't dictate anything. Welcome back. Okay. Uh, now, uh, I think Prashant and Sulakshana and two, three people. See, there are more than you two here, and I have to adhere to everybody. Sure, you don't want breaks. That may be your choice. So that may be your choice, but you cannot dictate for the whole class. That is the basic point. So if you will say you don't want it, there are close to 15, 16, 17 messages which are saying that we want one. So I can, it's not dictating by saying that don't give us a break. What do you expect me to do? I don't see it as a break. I see it as a consolidating period. That whatever I've taught, it goes into your mind. You consolidate. You move forward. I can teach. I teach weekend batches. I can teach 9 hours straight. That is not a problem. But whatever, you have the right to your own opinion. That is your call. So it's okay. Asking, dictating. What do you expect me to do? That I should listen to five or should? That's the basic point. Leave. Let's leave that. Whatever. Okay. Uh, 1 second. I just need to clear my. Now we start module number 3, which is Indian painting tradition. In this, I told you that there are basically 4 parts. And in these 4 parts, unlike architecture where we started at IVC, here we start at prehistoric. Prehistoric means Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, and Chalcolithic. Now, across the world, we have prehistoric art from different periods. But from the lower Paleolithic itself, we start to get it. But for the Indian subcontinent, we believe that from the upper Paleolithic period, we start to get art and paintings. And prehistoric art has a very specific terminology or a term related to it, which is called petroglyphs. They're called petroglyphs. Glyphs mean to paint. Petro means to be on rock. So you have petroglyphs, and the basic point is painting tradition is something which is hardwired to us. What do you mean by hardwired? That you could be a very good painter, you could be a very bad painter, but everybody knows how to make something. It is like somehow when we are born, at the earliest age itself, if you give a child a pen or a brush, even 5 months old, 10 months old, even 1 year old, a child, he would always know how to hold a pen. He would either hold it like this or hold it like this, but they know how somehow to hold a pen. This means that we are genetically wired to paint. And petroglyphs is the technical terms for prehistoric art, prehistoric paintings in that regard, which is called cave paintings. Cave paintings are called petroglyphs. Now, this hard wiring of your brain to understand how to make things comes from the fact that our earliest ancestors, the earliest men and women, were doing something which most of us can't do today. Petroglyphs means look, open your eyes and look at the screen. What does it say? Cave paintings, petroglyphs. So what does it mean? Cave paintings. Again, not sure. What are you doing? So the uh, SME, what you pushed is the is these is geoglyphs. Is called geoglyphs. So you remove that carving part. Carving part. You can change that. That's called a geoglyph. Geoglyph is a bigger term, and petroglyph is a smaller term than that. That is the issue with the Google. Okay. So cave paintings, which is when you do a certain art on the surface of the rock, then it is called cave painting. When you push into it and start to do engravings on it, it is called geoglyph, which is basically carving into the rock itself. We'll discuss geoglyphs also later. But petroglyphs is a word which is used what for more or less cave paintings. Multiple times UPSC uses this word, that what is the speciality of petroglyphs in India. Now, when I said petroglyphs or cave paintings, I'm talking about a certain tradition. I'm talking about a certain tradition of painting which existed from Upper Paleolithic. Now, I don't think there is anybody here, and I hope that there is no one here who needs to be explained what is paintings. I hope you understand what is a painting, right? I hope that is the basic idea, that you understand what I mean by painting. Painting means to make an image on a surface. That is a painting. So what I'm trying to argue here is that we are hardwired to paint. That comes from our ancestry in the prehistoric period. And now comes the aspect with regards to cave paintings. What are the aspects you should know? When we talk about cave paintings, there are 3 to 4 things which you need to understand. One is effort, second is value, third is techniques, fourth is characteristics, fifth is thematic, and seventh is the representation of daily life. Now it is prehistoric period. This means, is there literature or there is no literature? Prehistoric means what? Literature is there, literature is not there. It means no literature. Now, because there is no literature, we don't know too much other than archaeological records, which is material remains. But because of these cave paintings, we have an insight into the life of the early men and women. Now, in India, from Upper Paleolithic times, we have found prehistoric paintings. And many of the caves we found in India when it comes to Mesolithic or Neolithic, or not Neolithic, but Mesolithic and Paleolithic, we find certain form of paintings on them. Now, what do I mean by painting? See, this is how cave paintings are there. This is very rudimentary, but this is how cave paintings are there. And in India, two places we find a lot of cave paintings. One is called Lakhudiyar, which is near the river Suyal in the Kumaon Hills in Uttarakhand. And the second one is the most celebrated, which is the Bhimbetka sector. In Bhimbetka, we have 800 plus caves, and in them, from close to 500 of them have cave paintings in them. Now the question is effort and value. You and me can very simply say that these are very rudimentary images. These images have no value. These are just random images. But it was not cleared by Rain. I'll tell you why. But the concept is that, think of it how they were made. They were made fully out of memory. The thematics are quite diverse. Fully out of memory. You can't remember 5 martial arts. They remembered whole scenes. Second, they were made with very rudimentary, very rudimentary, what we call as brushes, and the concept of even fingers were used to make it. And the third is which is that they were done in caves which have only natural lighting. They are not done in open air. Third, they are made under artificial basic fire lighting, and some of them are so intricate that we cannot even make it today. So when we talk about effort and value, when we talk about effort and value, what we mean is that, what we argue is that it has more value and what we call as expertise than even modern art today. Because in modern art we have multiple forms of what we call as uh, techniques or tools which are helpful to us, but they were making it in the rudimentariest way possible. Now, the second thing which you need to understand is what is the technique, what is the thematic, and the characteristics. Now, one of you asked me this very straightforward question, sir, why did it not come out? What is the reason why they survived till today? How did these paintings survive the erosion? That is a question I'm asking you. Think of it. Why? How is that they have survived? See, the reason why they survive, as some of you have pointed out, is because not knowingly, invariably, unintentionally, the way they painted was that they were using certain chemicals which were available in the nature. Because the paint has chemically reacted with the rock, the rock still holds that color. For example, they have used limestone, they've used hematite, which is ferric oxide. What happens is that when you apply ferric oxide to the rock, it chemically reacts with the rock and therefore takes up that color. That is why the most common color which survives is either red or white, because it's either chuna, which is limestone, which they've used, though not knowing that it is a chemical reaction. And that is why the rock has picked up the color quite a lot. So the erosional activity and the fact that it has survived till today is because of the color being picked up. Now, the third is what is the thematic? Now, Lakhudiyar and Bhimbetka both show us that the thematic is quite diverse. From stick images stick images used for humans to proper designs for animals and humans, and different scenes of these periods are shown. Now, when we go to Bhimbetka, we get more thematics. This is not an elephant. This is obviously not an elephant. This is a boar. Boar. This is not an elephant. Uh, boar, pig, wild pig is called boar. Now, in Lakhudiyar, we find this dancing scene. That is one thing. But if you go to Bhimbetka, which is the most celebrated, you will find multiple thematics, and the most celebrated of them are three. One is called the hunting scene, the other one is called the fishing scene, and the third one is called the household scene. Now, why are these images so important? See, if you look at the aesthetic sense of that person, aesthetic sense of the painter, you will realize that they are trying to show animals in different patterns. And these patterns based, therefore, try to show animals in different ways. So they are trying to show that every animal is different by giving them a separate pattern altogether. More than that, you can see humans are represented in different manners. For example, this person has the bow and arrow. Now we know that they were using bow and arrow. They have already killed an animal and the blood is coming out. And they have shown a woman with her children to a small cat itself. The simple point is that the hunting scene shows us the scale of hunting which they were doing. But this image has a problem. This image has a problem, which is basically called the concept of, there's an issue of scale, and a scale in the sense of painting, and there's an issue of depth. Scale means that, for example, they have shown children on the back of that woman. But do children look like this small, vis-a-vis a cat, vis-a-vis other men? No. This is called the issue of scale. This is called the issue of scale, wherein they are not able to show correct scale. Second is the issue of depth. Depth means that we don't know which is in the front, which is in the back. This comes out more when we look at, for example, this image, which is called the fishing scene. Now, fishing scene is very interesting because they again try to show every different fish in a different pattern, in a way that they wanted to show that every fish is different. They are showing us nets, they're showing us baskets, which tells us the day-to-day life in that regard. But again, one thing which is missing is the issue of depth and scaling. That, for example, this fish is as big as, or more big than this man, or the fishes are very big and the men are small. This is called the issue of scale. You are not able to create the right scale, that this pen is looking as big as me, but this pen is basically held by me. So when I keep it in front of the camera, you can see now it looks very big. It looks like it is as big as my head, which is technically not true. And that is because there's an issue of measurement. There's a problem of scale in that sense. If you don't have the proper depth in your image, scale becomes different. But somehow, if you look at the household scene, you can see this person is sitting in the front or the back. In the back. How do you know that? Because this image has depth. This image has depth, somehow has depth, wherein you can realize that these 1 and 2 and 3 are in a different space altogether. But again, then the problem is when we talk about, for example, the scale of other things vis-a-vis it, then there's a problem. So you can see that they are trying to figure out something. They're trying to figure out something. They are experimenting, but the fact of the matter is these household scenes are the only things which we actually have till today that represent the early life of men and women. Now, before I go into the characteristics which have to be written in the examination, this is a very interesting thing. This is called the agricultural field. Now, this is interesting because each of the geometric patterns, they don't only use red, they use red, green, and white and yellow. When we talk about agricultural fields, every geometric pattern shows a different crop. So what does it represent? What does it represent? It shows what is called as mixed cropping or crop rotation. So crop rotation can be seen here. There are 3 to 4 different types of crops shown in this area, 8 different types, and irrigation works along with the birds. Everything is shown, which again shows us how the day-to-day life of these people existed. So there were certain things we needed to understand. First was value and effort. We've understood. We understood thematic. We understood the technique. Now we also have understood the representation of daily life. Now what you will be asked in the examination is what are the characteristics of the period-wise understanding? What characteristics are linked to the upper Paleolithic period? So this is what you have to learn. In the upper Paleolithic period, what we see is that there is green and dark red, which is used quite a lot, and stick-like human figures are shown. There is 2 types of paintings, which is called wash and non-wash. Basically, if you can see through that image, it's called non-wash. Thereafter, you have an image something like this. Can you see through the head of that person? The background of the slide? No. This is called wash. It's called non-wash. You can see it here also. This fish is non-wash. This is wash. Wash is a technical term for in paintings in that regard. Thereafter, few paintings were made and sometimes filled with the geometric patterns to make it wash. Green used for dancers, red for hunters. This is a very interesting thing. This is called using colors to represent social categories. To represent social categories. Thereafter, you have the Mesolithic period, wherein the largest numbers of paintings emerge because of the fact that it is the period in which the caves are more than the Paleolithic period. And we see naturalism when it comes to animals and stylism when it comes to humans. Basically, they try to represent the the animals in the most natural way possible, which you can see here, the most natural way possible here. On the other hand, when we talk about humans, they tend to add certain elements to them to make them more stylistic, to add a little bit of style and finesse in that regard. Where are the dancers? Here are the dancers. Okay. Now they were using handprints, first prints, dots, fingerprints. They were even using brushes. The thematic goes from hunting gathering and shows us different types of tools which they were using, to depicting animals chasing humans, to showing traps, to also showing us ornamentation. Hunters mostly wear ornaments, which is jewelry and clothes. Some men wear also headgear and masks. On the other hand, women are shown either with clothes, without clothes. And the animals depicted are as follows. Do not learn this. Do not learn. Do not learn. So we have animals also in different depictions. Now, by the time we come to the Chalcolithic period, we are able to understand that all of these images were surviving because we were able to understand the chemical composition, how they use brush, was it available? They take the fur of an animal and put it on a stick, you get a brush. So the colors were obtained from chemicals in that regard. That is why it was able to take up that color. They did not know about the chemicals. They just looked at the color of that thing, and they were able to experiment with different colors. Invariably, they were actually using chemicals which they did not know. For example, hematite geru is used for the iron oxide element, which basically reacts with the rock. Then, for example, green is taken from chalcedony, again a rock. White is taken from limestone, chuna. It will again react with the rock. So therefore, these oxides were being created invariably. It was a totally unintentional consequence. But what we further see is that the color scheme increases by the period we come to. If you see something, you would notice something. Why have I not talked about Neolithic? Why have I not talked about Neolithic? Where do you find these paintings? In caves. Neolithic people lived in caves. Sedentary agriculture. So they would move to the plain areas. So because they're near to the plainer areas, they would not have caves. So even if certain images were made, they would not survive. So the reason why Neolithic is not there, a lot of images are not there. There would be one, two images. Is the reason because Neolithic people moved out of the spaces of caves into plain area. But what we see is that that painting is transferred to pottery, which we'll discuss when we'll discuss pottery in that regard. Now, with this, we finish the first thematic, which is prehistoric. I'll give you a question to show you what type of question can come from this area. Can you answer this question? In Paleolithic, Mesolithic, was there agriculture, even rotation of crops? So, Mono, if you look at it, it is written against Chalcolithic. Chalcolithic period, certain hunting gathering societies made agricultural feats. Value today means value today. Can we value them? What is their value? Are they valuable? Are they not valuable? Okay. How should we value? How should we write their value today? What should be your answer with regards to that value today? They are invaluable. They are extremely valuable. They are more sophisticated than modern art. They are the only. They are the only. Achha, they are worthless. Ravi, why worthless? Beautiful answer. Love your culture. Very good, very good, very good. Either you are trying to write priceless and it came out to be as worthless. Both are very different things to each other. So you are writing priceless. Very good. So simple point is you cannot say that they are useless. You have to talk about the fact that they are actually more valuable than any other painting today because they are made with modern technology today. On the other hand, uh, when we talk about, for example, prehistoric art, they are made in a period where there is no other evidence, and more than that, they give us a window into the society at that point of time. So very simply, this is the basic point. What can we write? How, in what way can we write an answer effectively? By practicing and writing it effectively. Now, see, I don't want to start this, which is Ajanta and cave architecture. But in order to understand this, you need to know three very technical terms. So what I'll do is I'll introduce these technical terms to you, and we can then discuss what is the way cave architecture evolved over a period of time. Because I don't want to rush it. I can give you a basic idea, but it makes no sense. It makes no sense. We can easily do sculpture and painting tomorrow, and that would be a better use of our time. So, very simply, what I will do is I will discuss three terms with you, which are very, very important to understand any discussion henceforth. Are we clear about it? Don't think that these terms are not important. These are very important because they are used in Nitin Singhani also, and they're used in different contexts also. So the first word is called 3Dness, depth, sometimes used in a way of interchangeable. Second is single point perspective. Single point perspective. And one is called, and this we already discussed, scale and issue of dimensions. Now, the first word we already discussed is scale and issue of dimensions. The scale and issue of dimension is basically something which is a matter of how you represent something. Now, this is you can't see this. What should I show it to? Okay. Now, this is a remote. This is also a remote. Which is bigger, the white remote or the black remote? Right? Now, if I show it to you like this, which is bigger now? The black one. Now, basically, the more I bring it closer and I show it to you, it will start to basically look the same. But if I show it to you in scale, they are very different. This is the real scale. But if I don't make it in the right perspective, it will seem like that they're at least equal to each other, if not bigger. This is called the issue of scale and dimension. If you don't make a certain thing with the right depth, you basically mess up its scale. So very simply, this remote is going to come within my hand. But within a certain perspective, it can seem to be as big as my hand. And that is basically called scale issue. And scale is intricately linked to 3D-ness. 3D-ness. The more 3D-ness you give to a certain picture, the better you will understand its scale. For example, right now my image is 2D. Is 2D. You can see me in this plane, and if you look at it, my edge of my coat and the PPT background are in the exact same area. So this seems to be 2D. Seems to be 2D. And in 2D, mostly you will not be able to make out which is front, which is back. Now, if I stand like this camera is capable of taking depth also and scale also. So now you can make out that I am actually a 3D image, because you can make out that this back is in the back, this is in the front. This will get messed up if a 3D-ness is not there in a painting. I'll try to show you one thing. For example, you see here. This image is actually a very good example of three things. One is called cluttering. This is the image of, this is a Jatak image of Avalokeshwar. And basically this is called clutter. Clutter. Too much has been packed into the same painting itself. But the biggest issue is, for example, is of scale and depth. If you can see, there's a horse here. There's a horse here. Now this horse is equal to the size of this woman. Now, can that be the case? That a woman and a horse are exactly same size. Now, why has this happened? Because there is 2D-ness. This is in the back, this is in the front. So she should have been bigger. But that is not coming out. That is not coming out. This is not true, for example, for an image which will be made by, for example, the Mughal. This is again a very good example of issue of 3D-ness and scale. This elephant and this woman seem to be in the same place, meaning this seems to be the same plane. But what the painter wants to make it is not this plane, but this plane, meaning this is in the front, this is in the back, but that is not coming through. Now you look at this vis-a-vis, for example, an image. This is again Mughal painting, issue of scale and 3D-ness, wherein you can see this person is equal to one whole story of a building. He is bigger than the person standing next to him, and the whole building is made crooked. You see, this is called crookedness. When I make a 3D box, you see, I make it like this. I show you depth. That is the beauty of making a 3D image. But if I make it like this, it will turn out to be crooked. But this was resolved by the time we go to, for example, this is Shah Jahan. Now, are you able to see that he is able to represent the Yamuna also, and the forest is in the back and not in the same plane as we see? This is a very good example of depth and 3D-ness. 3D-ness in a way gives you a certain perspective of depth. If you understand this, you will half of the Nitin Singhania chapter will start to make sense to you, which is that 3D-ness is something which basically resolves your issue of depth and the issue of scale. All these three things get resolved if you have the capability of making something in a way of depth. I can make a box like this also. This is a 2D box. I can make a box like this also, which is a cube. This is a 3D box. The difference is you cannot make out if it is this image, this part, this part, this part, this part, this part, this part, any of the 8 sides. In 3D, you can basically make out which is the front, which is the back on the basis of your perspective, which brings us to the third point, which is called single point perspective. Do we understand 3Dness and depth and scale? Because I will presume this tomorrow when I will be teaching you the Ajanta caves and Mughal art. Do we understand this? Okay. Now, the last thing is called single point perspective. See, single point perspective is very simple. Right now, you are looking at me from a single point perspective. I can stand here or I stand here. Your perspective doesn't change. You will keep on looking in this straight line, which is here. This straight line, which is here. And basically, I have a green screen behind me. This bottle is green. That is why the basic color is getting mixed up. You can see how the algorithm is trying to blend it into the background. This is the single point perspective. That is the BEP software itself, which is trying to do it. There is a proper green screen here. This is the wall. You can't make out because it's trying to project a 2D thing. But my hand can go as back as this. I can stand like this. So here is the screen. Here is the green screen. And here I am. Now, if I stand like this to you, you cannot make out. You will never be able to make out how much distance is there. But if I do like this, now you will be able to see how much depth is there. But your problem is you are only looking at it from a single point perspective. You're looking from this. Now you would have seen, for example, the reporters, how they do it. Reporters have multiple perspectives. When they will speak one into this camera. Then they will have one camera here. Then they will speak into that one. Then they will speak into that one. Sometimes they have a camera up there also. That is called multiple perspectives or multi-point perspective. Your plane changes. Which plane you are in, that changes. So the simple point is bottle is not visible in front of wall, but bottle, no, it will still not be visible. It will still not be visible. There's a reason why I don't wear green color. There's a reason why I actually don't wear green color. You'd have seen I mostly wear red. I don't even wear white. Because as soon as I will go into a little bit of a lighter shade, it will start to make me transparent. This is a blue. This is actually green. This is black. Green screen effect happens like this. A camera will pick up, the algorithm will change the color into, it will try to make it as it can be in front of me also, it will not change. So there's a bottle here, but you will think that it's standard things. Now you still can't see through. In a way you can see through me. In a way you can see through me, but you are not actually seeing through me. There's a bottle in front of me. It's not Baiju's bottle, my bottle. Now, so the same TV, that all things which you see is all green screen, which you see. Mostly green screen is there. So means you're writing on the wall? No. If I was writing on the wall, I will be writing like this. If I write something here, nothing will happen. There's a vacuum in front of me. Abhi tak you have not realized that I write like this, not like this. This way. Okay. Now, why is single point perspective important? Last thing which I want to discuss with you. See, this is called a multi-point perspective. Akbar was known for this. This is called a multi-point perspective. This is a multi-point perspective, wherein he is trying to put in too much detail. One perspective is this, one perspective is this, one perspective is this, one perspective is this, one perspective is this. And Jahangir did not like that. Jahangir always wanted single point perspective, always looking towards him. So before we end for today, I will try to consolidate what we've done till this point. Today we finished architecture. I hope that you will use the images which I've shown to you to remember and revise. I've given you a table to understand it first. Second, we started paintings. We have done prehistoric paintings. Tomorrow we will finish paintings and do sculptures. Sculptures of small topic. Main topic is basically Gandhara, Amravati, and Mathura. And once that is done, we will now go into dances and all. by next week. So our basic thematic shifts by next week, and the way we are going it at it, because of my health itself, we are close to a module or half a module back. We should have been at module number 4. We are at module number 3. Technically, we should have module number 5. We are at module number 3, 3.5. So I have to make that up. That I will make up most probably on 20th, where you have the doubt session. So we'll see that. We'll see that. Monday there will be a class, obviously. So we'll figure that out. So now you have a webinar. Go unwind, 5 minutes break, eat something. And I think Anubhav sir has a webinar on polity. I will tell you what to do with Nitin Singhania on Monday, once we go into the smaller topics. Right, Yashi? So you just consolidate this portion, which is mains oriented area. And for the time lost because of my health, I'll make it up for sure. Don't worry about that. Thank you. We will meet tomorrow, finish these two big four, and then move forward in the next one. I'll do previous year questions. Don't worry, Shagun. Everything I will do. Don't worry. Okay. See you.